we have more people coming, so rather than delay our speaker, can we at least get an approval of today's agenda? Great. How about the minutes? Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Bert?
I suggested to Bill, I don't know what he put the fact that I ran the meeting last week.
Oh, that,
Yes, that should be.
absolutely, that should be in the minutes.
If it's not, I thought I had said something like that you delivered the chair's report. I'm good with you.
Point out that
That should definitely be on there.
Okay.
It was like the first time,
No, Mike presided over one.
Yes, he did. Mike did.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion with the corrections of the minutes.
All righty. Any objections to the minutes being approved as amended? All right, we're gonna not do our chair's report and board report because Ian Watt, our speaker, is facing time deadlines. Let me just tell you a little about him. He's Director of Recovery and Resiliency with New York City Transit, a post he's held since November of 2015. Previously, he served as Deputy Director of Recovery and Resiliency after spending time as a Recovery and Resiliency Fellow. That's certainly your thing, isn't it?
I discussed it, yeah.
Wow. They call you R&R Watt, I guess. Yeah. In his current position, Mr. Watt provides leadership to recovery and resiliency efforts within New York City Transit. I'm not going to keep saying this. This is like so repetitive. So, Department of Subways Hurricane Planning and Mitigation Deployment and Subway Winter Operations. So he's the go-to guy for these kinds of projects. He coordinates prioritization of the $6.7 billion R&R project portfolio to maximize the impact of Superstorm Sandy, and as all of us who ride trains on the weekends know, there are frequently GOs involving Sandy fixes, and they are ongoing. And basically, that's the story. So, what percentage would you say we are right now of the Sandy work having been fully completed?
So, perhaps I should put it into.
Or you want to, if it's in your...
Why don't I get a presentation?
Let's do that.
Putting it on a percentage basis, depends whether you want to go on a dollar basis or a tube impact or otherwise.
I would have gone on a tube impact basis, but yeah.
I will,
Okay.
I will get to that detail as we go.
Great.
Thank you very much. My name is Ian Watt. I'm the head of Subway's Recovery and Resiliency Division, so I'm going to go through the ongoing impacts, both on the recovery work, which I'm sure you're very well versed in, and maybe have been at your weekend rides or other rides impacted by over the last couple of years, as well as the resiliency work, which I don't think has gotten as much attention. Certainly internally it has. I wanted to make you all privy to our efforts to make sure that in the future, should Superstorm Sandy or an equivalent arrive in the city, we are much better prepared to prevent the damage that we saw during Sandy.
It would be an equivalent because nobody would name it that again.
No. I have not presented this. A lot of this information has probably been. We are not jumping slides as anticipated.
I think it's the arrows on the keyboard.
Let me get Adrian.
Yes.
It's in the kitchen. This is from the. Oh, here we go. That probably does. So yes, to the question before, a lot of.
Can I say that on camera? Excellent.
We plan for if and when, yes.
As I said, it's either once in 100 years or more.
Every year it's once in 100 years, but every year could be that year for 100 straight years, unfortunately. We will be ready. That's all details today. So just to give a quick overview again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the damage Sandy wrought on the subway system. We had at a high level, this is not comprehensive, but at a high level, impacts to 9 of our under-river tubes between Brooklyn and Manhattan, one carrying the G train between Brooklyn and Queens. Major impact, major flooding at 8 stations throughout the system in northern and southern and lower Manhattan, as well as Brooklyn. The Staten Island Railway's Clifton Shop was flooded severely, suffered extreme damage. Various train yards in South Brooklyn, in Upper Manhattan also sustained damage, as well as a variety of washout impacts in the Rockaways, of course the longest duration delay in return to service that we experienced. And then a variety of other nuisance flooding and various other impacts to our system.
Why, I'm sorry, why 207th Street on the one line since it's not near the water per se? Why not 215, for instance?
So 207th Street Yard does abut the Harlem River. 207th Street Yard that
The
serves.
yard does, but I thought you were talking about stations. You have 207th Street that's
So
listed as a
because the 207th Street portal, so the yard portal, was not protected during Sandy, there was water, there's a cross flooding
came
risk.
through the yard and on.
And the cross flooding risk is something that I'll speak to, we're addressing, because again, it's not just a concern of where the water will come in, but where will it go once it gets into the system and its various geographies. Again, just to highlight some of the damage, obviously one of the more devastating impacts was to South Ferry Station. The new South Ferry Station, which was opened in 2009, suffered catastrophic damage, has been closed since Sandy. We have ongoing recovery work, which I will detail. That full station was flooded to, I believe, 70 feet, effectively the ceiling of the new station. Extremely devastating to all systems and undergoing full rehabilitation as we speak. 86th Street, Sea Beach, just representative of another station. Again, you can see the platform edge there. You cannot see the tracks. Severe flooding to depths of 6 to 8 feet throughout a lot of these stations, submerging all of our necessary equipment. Cranberry Tube, again, just a representative photograph of one of the 9 tubes that had varying degrees of flooding, varying degrees of duration. Due to the Con Ed power impacts, our pumping capacity was greatly hindered. It took varying degrees, varying timelines to return the system, anywhere between a couple of days to several weeks to pump the water out of our system. And then finally, last certainly but not least, in the Rockaways, devastating rock washouts to areas in the Rockaway Flats throughout the duration from Howard Beach to Hamels Y, as well as the Rockaway Park Yard. Just to give a sense, and if any of you attended any of our Canarsie equipment, I do recognize a couple faces. I was the person standing behind the damaged equipment. Gave a little taste at those meetings. Really, the corrosive effects of salt water, both in the immediate moments and even today, has been very devastating. Requires ongoing maintenance and cleaning. Our pump control equipment, fan plant equipment, any electrics, conduits, cabling, duct tanks, any affected system, especially electrical systems, have experienced failures or intermittent challenges that have required greater levels of maintenance, greater levels of response. We are conducting on an ongoing basis, as I'm sure you've heard in the context of that project, but also on the other tubes that we're still to get to. But again, corrosive damage throughout the system that we are continuing to maintain and respond to. I split the presentation into the recovery program and the resiliency program. But an important highlight I want to make in the recovery program is not just that we're building back, in many cases we are, but that we're ruggedizing and making resilience in place components as well where possible. So not just rebuilding cable and putting back the same cable that was not resistant to salt water, but putting in ruggedized submarine cable where possible, using better components, better materials for our duct banks in Montague, RC when we get to that work in a couple of years, but making sure that we're really building better in our design guidelines and design standards, not just in the Sandy work, but throughout the capital program and future capital work will represent our new attention to flood risk and potential saltwater. So I did want to highlight to date, to your question, Andrew, I think we have made a variety of progress and done some really good things. 3 of the 9 tubes have been completed. The R-Train Montague tube was a 13-month shutdown between 2013 and 14. It was actually returned to service a couple of weeks early to the announced date. The Greenpoint tube, if anyone was a G-Train rider, was out for 5 weeks that same summer. In 2014, we returned both Greenpoint and Montague in September of 2014. The Steinway tube, which was done as weekend repairs or standard weekend GOs, was completed in November of 2015 from its Sandy damage. And then, of course, the Rockaways, I went out of chronological order, but the Rockaways were the first milestone reached where we restored service in May 2013 after the October 2012 storm. Restored full service out to both our Rockaway.
But you restored it with R19s.
Yes, we have not kept those going since. We have also restored the rolling stack that was running previously at this point. And again, to this point, all of those, Montague being the best example, where we could build ruggedized components, resilient components into recovery work, we have done so. In the case of the Rockaways, one item I don't highlight anywhere else, we also built a sheet pile wall on 12,500 feet of the Rockaway Flats that should prevent washout in the event of a future storm. And we do have more work in the Rockaways, which I will speak to. So this is a high-level overview. I'll just step to the screen. So it's actually split amongst the tube work, the yard work, and then other major facilities with impacts. So to date, we have completed work on 3 of the 9 tubes, Greenpoint, Montague, and Steinway, as noted. Cranberry, 53rd Street, and Geralman. Excuse me, if we have any riders of those tubes will have noted in much of the second half, I believe actually starting in Q2 of this year, we have had impacts in all of those tubes. Each of them will have continued weekend work in 2017. The expected goal is to complete in the first half of 2017. The work on each of those tubes, and the remaining geos actually varies. Some are closer to complete than others. So to that point, in terms of progress, by our expectation is by the middle of 2017, we will have restored 6 of the 9 damaged tubes, which are of course one of the most forward-facing and impactful to our rider impacts of the storm. So we're very pleased with that progress, but obviously leaves a lot more to go. Clark Street, which has been awarded but is yet to begin active work. Darcy, which I know you've been presented to previously, and that's very well aware of the need there. And the Rutgers tube, which does not currently have excuse me, a scheduled date, is scheduled to be completed after Darcy work at some point to be determined in the future.
You will do, obviously, the Rutgers too, after Cranberry is complete.
Correct. We cannot do them simultaneously, and I believe, and this is a great question for operations, but due to the interactions, Rutgers too, we are not planning to do until later than after Clark, potentially after Darcy. So yes, and no, the scope is different in terms of the amount of flooding and the impact components are different across the tubes. Obviously, Canarsie and Montague being the examples of the greatest damage we saw. Extended flooding caused, irreversible damage to the duct banks. We don't have as much of a scale of duct bank work in the other tubes, which is why we've been able to do it as weekend work rather than the 24/7. But certainly cabling, electrical components, certain signal components are fairly consistent across projects. Communications, cable, power cable, various pumping facilities are being both repaired as well as upgraded as part of this work. So it is similar, but never the same. The scale of impact is different across the system. Between the 3 yards, Rockaway Park is getting cable replacement. Each of the others, 148 and 207th Street and Coney Island, are also having the cable replacement, but in addition we'll be getting pretty broad resiliency measures, perimeter protection at each of those facilities, which I'll get into a little bit as we transition. That work will be paired in terms of be it as one project to increase efficiency and limit the disruption to our operations and any limited disruptions that may cause to riders. Our goal is to award those projects, or at least 2 of those projects, in 2017. The Rockaway Park Cable project is actually in closeout, so we've completed the active work. It is operational and the cable has been replaced. South Ferry, I don't know how much detail has been given to this group before, is in ongoing construction with the intended completion sometime in 2017. I will let others put an official date on those things, but the work to date has been extremely successful. We've been very pleased with the grouting operation, with the pace of the repair work that's being handled by John O'Grady's group. We've done a very, very strong job to date with that project and expect it to be ready for customer service this year. Entrance 1, as you all know, was closed for 9 months and reopened in August. You can begin to see some of the resiliency measures, the marine doors, etc., are visible at street level after this meeting. St. George Terminal, again, I did mention their impacts to the Staten Island Railway. St. George Terminal has received a track replacement as well as a new relay room and other signal upgrades. That work is in construction, also a 2017 completion date. There's also resiliency work that will follow not yet awarded in design that I will speak to later. And then finally, the Upper 8th Avenue line between 200 and 207th Street. We have done pump work as well as tunnel lighting. There is also track and signal work to be awarded in the future as part of the recovery. Any questions or comments before I proceed?
Anyone have?
I just-
Chris?
Question about the, let me just say this correctly. Question about the Rockaway Park yard.
Yes.
It says inclusion. I mean, so you're gonna shut down the shuttle when it does that construction?
No, so I should have, that's really my mistake. I'm just using internal nomenclature. Closeout is effectively just a project.
Close out of the project.
Close out the project. So the project is functionally done.
So
Service,
it's done.
there is no service disruption from this project. There actually was not while we constructed it.
So I'll leave my other question.
Carolyn?
It's a little unrelated, but for example, places that aren't necessarily so vulnerable, but, you know, it is New York. I mean, have they included resiliency factors like the Second Avenue or?
Yeah, so both Second Avenue and the Hudson Yards project do, where the risk exists, there are resilient doors and other finishes in place. So we have been, this is both in new construction as well as ongoing construction in the core capital program, something that we have.
So now this is, so just the mindset is included?
Yes, the mindset is included in Cortlandt Street would be another area in consideration as we continue that capital project. We have considered those vulnerable ingress points as well.
With the tunnels being shut down,
Speak up a little.
with the tunnels being shut down, like Rutgers too, where the ductwork wasn't damaged as much, but you don't want to shut those down again. Was there sort of an assessment that was done that the that while you're in there, you shouldn't be fortifying the ductwork in case a storm from a different direction, you know?
Yeah, and the fortification has mainly been done, and also that the resiliency program at the street level, basically preventing water from coming in and then enhancing our pumping systems and putting resilient assets in place where we can. You know, in terms of Rutgers, the idea of, we have a functional duct bank that works, that was certainly probably had water splash on it, but did not sustain the damage or any ongoing risk to the system. We are now replacing components that are functional and are in a state of good repair. Whenever that time comes, through the regular capital program state of good repair process, we can incorporate our new design guidelines for resilient components.
Omar?
So this is an extensive list. I know that the Canarsie has had the biggest pause because that requires basically a whole bunch of service alternate services, and due to the repair being shut down for a year and a half, as the MTA already decided that over the summer. But one thing I was wondering is that you mentioned Rockaway Park. I went with Mr. Albertson and just simply have A trains go there as well. That's the much better deal to go than simply the shuttle. But back to the 70 fix and fortify. Would the Canarsie tunnel repairs also come with offering a free in-system transfer, like building a permanent in-system transfer between Junior Street and Livonia Avenue on the 3 and L's?
Yeah, so I would actually defer questions about the Canarsie project to our materials that are already on the website, or what has been spoken, by the board and by the leadership of
I
Transit.
can answer that
Oh, sure.
actually. During the L train reconstruction, there will be a free transfer between the 3 and the L at Junius Livonia. The next capital program actually has it to build a full-time,
In-system.
yes, in-system transfer.
For the moment, they should keep it an out-of-system transfer because it's not fair for the passengers that want to transfer between the two lines, and they have to pay a double fare. It's almost the same as a station that has no free transfer between directions.
It's the last place that lines cross, basically, aside from where the G and the
J.
and yeah, does not have a transfer. Someone else has their hand up? Oh, yes. Deborah?
Yes, I'm curious one thing. I know you did a lot of reinforcement for the A line, especially when it goes over Jamaica Bay. But are you positive that if a real catastrophic storm hits, that those tracks can't be washed out again?
Yeah, so let me, so I will speak to that in the resiliency program, but we do have further plans within the resiliency program to address other areas of the Rockaways. So I will get to that if your question isn't answered.
Okay, and then one other thing is, in reference with the A, I do agree with Mr. Albert, but I'm old enough to remember when there was a train in Rockaway that would start at Beach 116, and they would stay and go to the last stop of where the A ends. I would like to see that come back, and I would like to see, either having the C end up at Beach 116 and have the A go to Beach 41st, or whatever they call that. But it would be a lot better because they're building it up, and they need to have more consistent train service and make more of the stations accessible with ramps as well as elevators.
Let's stick to this if we can.
That's fine.
In fact, we should probably go to the next slide.
Is for
So I wanted to update and speak to the resiliency program. So again, the recovery work is focused on getting our system back to a state of good repair. The resiliency program is focused on protecting the system in the event of a future storm. And I wanted to highlight not just the capital resiliency work, which will be the focus, but also that we have greatly enhanced and reviewed our internal processes, so making sure that our operations not only accept these new capital assets, which total, in sum, almost $2.6 billion, but also that we have internal processes in place and plans for deployment, both to train our employees in deployment of these new types of assets, but also to be able to do them efficiently. Inevitably, I will speak to the infrastructure protection, but in the event of a hurricane, of course, our paramount importance is to provide evacuation service, to provide ongoing service as long as possible to evacuate riders from vulnerable parts of the city. And so our deployment plans have to take that into account and very much do to allow us to provide service for as long as possible and then protect our infrastructure as the secondary impact. So as I mentioned, there's more than $2.6 billion in capital work being done, ingress protection, yard protection, protection of critical facilities, substations, right-of-way rooms, stations rooms, and otherwise. These project timelines extend for several years from today in different timelines based on the type of project. Certainly the yard walls are the ones, given the scale of construction, that will probably extend the furthest into the future. Our objective internally in our design guideline calls for protection of a Category 2 storm plus 3 feet. Sandy, for the sake of discussion, is effectively equivalent to a Category 1 storm. So we are not just building protection for Sandy, but a storm even worse than Sandy, and then building in a safety factor over that for various potential impacts of climate, of wave action, and other environmental factors. As I mentioned, we've upgraded our internal hurricane plan in the Department of Subways, and we are implementing have an ongoing implementation of better storm tracking tools to make sure that remote reporting with our groups in the field is also reported centrally, so we can better track and maintain progress reports as we prepare.
Didn't I think I heard at a board meeting that even where this building is underground is being storm-proofed?
Correct. In fact, I think they fit it. That was not, because we don't own this facility, and I believe the building did complete. If you go out back, you can see all those lovely plants were part of the drainage improvements, but they have a stop log system, which I'll showcase we're using elsewhere, that we put in place because we obviously have assets both here and in the basement, though I believe many of those have been raised as well. Sure.
Does it also include that scenario where when it rains 2 inches in an hour?
Yes, so we are, yes, mitigating to rainfall events as well. In the cases where we're putting walls around things, putting a wall around things is a very good way to keep water out. It's also a very good way to keep water in. So we have taken that into account. One point I guess I would make is freshwater and saltwater are very different risks. Inundation risk from freshwater is a concern and something we're mitigating to. It would not, hopefully, certainly, would not have the same long-term impact as saltwater does. So we are mitigating to that. We would not go to a full deployment of all our protection measures probably before a rain event, unless it was, of course, anticipated.
Those stations that are vulnerable in those areas.
Yeah, I mean, in the event of a rain event, of course, the whole city becomes vulnerable, so we don't have measures for everywhere. But again, freshwater and saltwater are very different risks. So, and then again, deployment preparation, making sure in the meantime, we have near-term mitigation better engineered than what we had prior to Sandy, looked at some of the impacts we saw, and went back and re-engineered some horizontal, pre-prepared a variety of assets to have them in place while we wait for capital build. Just to give people a sense, this is why it is both so expensive and so time-consuming to protect. The vulnerability that we have in the system is vast across Lower Manhattan, across Brooklyn, across Queens, North and Upper Manhattan, and a very limited part of the Bronx as well as Staten Island. So it really is a universal risk, but something, every item here with incredibly limited exception does have a capital project associated with it and will be addressed for water and rent. So we have two different, and I don't really want to bog people down, and we have two main funding sources for the resiliency program. One is called locally prioritized resiliency. One is the FTA's competitive resiliency program, which is the only reason these projects are split from the standpoint of our customers and of our system. You know, effectively they're the same. They're all in service of protecting either the assets at street level or within the system.
So does that infer that the federal Sandy monies that the MTA has received are only for recovery and not for resiliency?
No. So the FTA is a partner in both the LPR and the competitive resiliency. So the FTA has been a very welcome and very enthusiastic partner for us in both of these programs.
Wait, what's LPR?
LPR is locally prioritized resiliency. Again, it's more of a funding nomenclature than anything that's particularly relevant to the outcomes of the projects.
Can you tell me, do you have enough money to do everything you wanted to do on the $2.6 million that was the first step? What is the finance?
We feel that what we're purchasing adequately protects the highest risk assets that were affected by Sandy and beyond.
And that money is available?
And that money is available. It's been committed by the FTA. We, of course, put in grants if need to spend it, but we're making solid progress on that. But yes, every project you're seeing here has a committed funding source from the FTA and then matched by local sources.
Do you have, though, the wish list of what you weren't able to get funding for?
We do hold that. It's really not particularly expensive, to be honest. I mean, we have done very well. The competitive resiliency project was something we actually applied for. LPR was, I shouldn't say gifted, but more given on a block basis. The competitive resiliency we did very well as an agency. The MTA partnered with New York City Transit in receiving what we wanted. There are limited assets in the Category 2 flood zone, which is again more extreme than Sandy, and the risk is both not as great, and some of the impacts would not be as great, in a Category 2 storm. Whereas Sandy, you got 8 feet somewhere, Category 2 storm, you may get 6 inches somewhere, so it is flood vulnerable, but the risk is not as great. But we definitely feel that what is funded and moving forward more than adequately protects us, our high-risk areas, both on the revenue right-of-way as well as in the yards for the greatest risks of coastal flooding. So again, just to speak to it briefly, Lower Manhattan, this is a paired project that protects the ingress, street level ingress, which is again our primary protection. Backup generators, again, we had issues related to the Con Ed power feed due to their troubles during Sandy, making sure we are more sustainable and independent with our power generation at our pumping facilities. Staten Island, both the Clifton Shop is being fortified, and St. George Terminal will be protected with perimeter protection. Pump trains, these are 2 completed pump trains. We now have 5 available to us. In the event of a storm, we stage them and have a quick mobile pumping capacity to help us pump out any water that does come into the system. The backup PCC, the Power Control Center, again, just fortifying our existing assets and giving us backup and redundancy. The power cable and ducts, which is what I noted, kind of the ruggedized construction. That is both Montague and Canarsie, and then limited touches in some of the other tubes. And then near-term hardening, I will showcase at Coney Island, where we're building out a full Category 2 plus 3-foot wall. In the long term, we actually have Category 1 protection at that yard right now. We also have some covers for Lower Manhattan ingress points that we will be getting permanent fixtures for later, but we have temporary and fully engineered solutions there. And then pumping augmentation, again, our second line of defense after preventing water from getting in is pumping it out, of course, as quickly as possible. Again, so this is, again, just the other flavor of funding, the other bucket of projects. Yard flood mitigation at 207th Street, 148th Street, and Coney Island. These are perimeter protections, full walls, and gates. Street openings, previous slide mentioned street openings. This is the other 2,400 and some, again, it's everything that I noted before as vulnerable. The Rockaway line flood mitigation, I believe this was a question previously. The Rockaway line, in addition to the existing wall that was put in place, will also be receiving protection at 3 stations, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and then the police district, I believe, at Beach 116. The Hamels Y facility, which contains our substation and a compressor room and some other key facilities, will be getting perimeter protection as well as protecting the key switch that serves there, that serves service splitting in Y. We are also upgrading, hardening some right-of-way assets and making sure that we build in washout protections. There's the question asked before, building out washout protection on a greater duration of the Rockaways area. We are still in design on that project and determining how much, but we are confident that we can get to a level of some protection for the duration of the Rockaways from the washouts that we saw during Sandy. And then some service flexibility upgrades, installing a new switch to allow us flexibility in service depending on what impacts we may see. Substations, again, hardening of the assets, perimeter protection and other touches. Emergency communications are strengthening our backup command center, so backing up the RCC, some additional touches at our backup facility, and upgrading the EBCS system, which is our booth control system, where the booths, agent booths, communicate with the RCC, upgrading that process and modernizing. Internal station hardening, protecting conduits, protecting doorways that may see, again, if our primary protection fails or has the expected leakage, which is part of the design factor, is that there will be leakage regardless. We cannot keep all of the water out. No engineered solution anticipates that, but that our rooms will be hardened. Tunnel sealing is sort of speak to protection of the portals. So portals at 148th Street, 207th Street, and Hunters Point. Again, making sure the water doesn't cross flood into those portals and then affect the associated lines. Right-of-way equipment, more room protection, and then finally pumping system improvements. Our under-river tubes, specifically those impacted by Sandy, are getting touches, as well as conversion of 2 additional pump cars, and then purchasing of more mobile pumps. So I did want to give people some visual to these various things. Again, many of them, if you walk around Lower Manhattan, you'll begin to see now, and certainly if anyone rides the Rector Street, actually either the IRT or the BMT would have had this impact down here in Lower Manhattan recently, as we put some of these touches on. So in the near term, again, we have prefabricated and engineered better solutions, better wood planks and other sandbags. These are obviously not what we want to do in the long term, but we cannot build everything at once. So we have pre-engineered and prefabricated these for every vulnerable station location and stored them. We have some fiberglass covers that came as part of the initial near-term funding from the FTA. In the long term, our goal is at all sites to have either a marine door, stop logs, again, that's what we actually, I think they have for the building here to Broadway, or a flex gate. The flex gate is kind of the, I should say revolutionary, but we worked closely with ILC Dover, a private sector partner. They put in a lot of research and design